Hi everyone, welcome to another Business English video tip. Today we are talking about your presentations, specifically talking about and presenting a project. So I'm going to give you some useful phrases, some verbs and some nouns that you can use when you're talking about or presenting your projects. So here's some very typical and useful vocabulary. So let's have a look at this first, and then after that I will tell you some verbs that you can use together with these nouns, with these words. So first of all, in every project you need to have clear objectives or aims, or clear targets and goals. My first question for this video is, what is the difference between these words and these words? So what's the difference between objectives, aims, and targets, goals? Well, the difference is that objectives and aims are more general and targets and goals are more specific and measurable. So you could have an aim or an objective, and that could be, I want to improve my English, or I want to speak better English, or I want to understand more English, and that's quite general. Or you could have a target or a goal which is more specific. You could say, I want to learn 10 new words every week, and after 4 weeks or 8 weeks you can measure that. So that's a more specific target. So just moving on to this next one here, these words here, customers' requirements. So in every project, if you work with clients and customers, they will have needs or requirements. If you're creating an app, you might need to talk about a beta version, or if you're creating or producing products, you might need to talk about a prototype. Of course, you'll always have tests and a deadline. So let's have a little think about what verbs you can use with these words. So first of all, at the beginning, when you think about and write down the targets and the aims and the objectives, what is the verb that you use? Well, the verb is set. You set clear objectives and aims, or you set clear targets and goals, and then after that your client or your customer will have these requirements, and you need to meet these requirements. So this verb here is meet. After that, this is a little bit more basic, a little easier. You would do a beta version or a prototype. You could also create, if there's more, if it's more creative, you could create a beta version or a prototype. After that, you can do tests, or a nicer, more sophisticated verb or a more professional way to say that would be to carry out tests. And then finally, you always have a deadline. Let's say, for example, the 30th of September, and you need to finish on this date. So this verb here is meet. You need to meet the deadline. So meet the deadline or meet the deadline. So what would be a quick example of this vocabulary here? Let's imagine you are a startup company and you develop apps, and you have a customer, and the customer has requirements. So the customer needs an app for restaurants, for waiters and bar staff, to make their work go quicker, or to make the service go quicker. They have, for example, 100,000 euros that's the budget, and they want you to create this app in 2 months. So they are the customer's requirements. After that, then you would set clear objectives or aims. You would say, okay, these developers are working on this project, and this is the project manager. You'll have every week something which needs to be finished. You would have a timeline, so you would set that out when you set the objectives or the aims. After that, of course, you do the first version, you do the beta version, or if you're creating a product, you would do the prototype. Then you would carry out tests. In this example that I'm talking about, you would carry out the tests in a restaurant, for example, or the developers would test it themselves and check for bugs in the app. And then finally, they would work in order to meet that deadline, so to be finished by the 30th of September, for example. So these are just some important verbs and nouns which you can use when talking about a project. I have more, so there is a second part to this video, so make sure you click on the second part. The link should be somewhere on the screen now, and thanks for watching the video, and come back for more. If you want to see more video tips like this, just click on these videos here. So when do we use in, on, at to talk about time and to talk about location? This video will talk about the top 3 tips to remember vocabulary. So, do you know the difference between this and this? Why